What if you were sentenced to an eternity of pushing a giant rock up a hill, only for it to roll down every time you reach the top? If that sounds like a never-ending exercise in futility, well, congratulations. You've just met Sisyphus, the star of our story today. Sisyphus wasn't your typical guy. He was king of Corinth, a place in ancient Greece. He was crafty, boastful, and loved showing off how clever he was. But he also had a serious case of the nerve. In fact, he was so bold that he started messing around with the gods. One day he invited Hades, god of the underworld, over for a little friendly competition. Now, if you know anything about these kinds of competitions, you'll know they never end well. And you'd be right. After some polite games, things got heated. Sisyphus told Hades where to stick his fancy chariot and then did something even more shocking. He kidnapped Persephone, Hades' wife, and wouldn't let him take her back. And that's when Hades decided enough was enough. He took Sisyphus down to the underworld and chained him to a nearby stone. But Sisyphus wasn't done causing trouble even there. While stuck in the underworld, he managed to annoy the three judges who decide whether people get to enter Valhalla or not. They said if he made it through their hall without causing any chaos, he could come back to the land of the living. Sisyphus accepted the challenge, passed their first two tests. But when it came time for the final judge, he just couldn't resist. He mocked the poor guy, called him names, even threw some shade at his mom. The judges weren't having it. They sent him right back to his stone, trapping him forever. As you can probably tell, Sisyphus was not known for his good judgment. His story, however, is much more than a cautionary tale about staying out of hell. It's a profound exploration of the human experience, the search for meaning in a seemingly meaningless world. Let's unpack this together. In 1942, French philosopher Albert Camus published an essay called The Myth of Sisyphus. In it, he examines the ancient tale and finds a striking parallel between Sisyphus and us humans. You see, Sisyphus's punishment was total freedom. He had no obligations, no rules, nothing except for his boulder and the hill. And while that sounds pretty lame, Camus says it actually mirrors our own lives. Every day we work towards something, a goal, a dream, a vision of the future. We put one foot in front of the other, one step at a time. But sometimes it feels like all that effort goes nowhere. Deadlines pass, opportunities slip away, and even hard work doesn't always pay off. Camus calls this feeling the absurd. It's the clash between our natural desire for meaning and the universe's deafening silence. Just like Sisyphus rolling his boulder up the hill only for it to roll back down again and again and again, we too often find ourselves caught in cycles of effort and futility. So let's ask a tough question. What's the point? Why keep pushing our boulder if it's always going to roll down? Why chase dreams that seem just out of reach? Why try to make sense of a world that seems determined to be senseless? Camus grapples with these questions and offers a surprising answer. Now, before we dive into his response, allow me to paint a picture of another character in this story, a certain Mr. George Bailey. See, George lived a life filled with sacrifice. He gave up his dreams, his fun, and even his chance at love so that others could benefit. But here's the kicker. As he lay on his deathbed, old and alone, he realized that none of his sacrifices had made any real difference. The town he'd worked so hard to help was just the same as it had been. All his efforts seemed pointless. But that's when something strange happened. Suddenly, George was visited by a guardian angel named Clarence, and Clarence showed him what the town would be like if he'd never been born. It was a bleak, joyless place full of misery and despair. And that's when George understood the value of his life. Even though it didn't seem like it at the time, every decision he'd made, every sacrifice he'd endured, every bit of effort had mattered. He'd made a difference. Camus wouldn't go for such sentimental hogwash, of course. Instead, he explores the absurdity of life through reason and logic. He begins by tackling a classic philosophical question. Does life have a purpose? Well, according to Camus, the simple answer is no. There is no grand plan, no guiding hand, no divine intention. We are, as he puts it, condemned to be free. We exist in a universe that doesn't care about our hopes, our dreams, our fears. It's a universe that doesn't speak, that doesn't answer, that remains stubbornly silent in the face of our deepest questions. This, Camus argues, is the source of our anguish. It's the realization that we are responsible for creating our own meaning in a world that offers none. You see, just like Sisyphus, we find ourselves constantly striving, working, hoping. Yet our efforts often seem to be swallowed by a vast indifference. Deadlines loom, relationships fray, and our own mortality creeps closer. And still we press on. But why? If life has no inherent meaning, no divine justification, then why not give up? Camus calls this the suicidal impulse. Faced with the absurdity of existence, it's natural to want to end it all. If there's no purpose, no meaning, then what's the point of continuing? Why endure the pain, the suffering, the endless toil, only to end up 6 feet under? This, Camus acknowledges, is a tempting solution. It offers a way out of the anguish, a way to escape the burden of creating meaning. But ultimately, he argues, it's a dead end. Suicide, he says, is a betrayal of the human spirit. It's a refusal to engage with the world, to confront the absurd, and to create meaning in the midst of meaninglessness. And that's where Camus' philosophy takes a rather unexpected turn. He argues that the absurd, far from being an obstacle, is actually the starting point. The realization that life has no inherent meaning is not a dead end, but a doorway to infinite possibilities. When we acknowledge the absurdity of existence, when we embrace the fact that we are condemned to be free, we become empowered. We are no longer bound by the expectations of a divine plan or the illusions of a meaningful universe. We are free to create our own meaning, to define our own purpose. According to Camus, this is what it means to be truly alive. It's not about blindly following a predetermined path. It's about consciously creating our own. But hold on a second. How can we talk about creating meaning in a meaningless universe? How can we hope to craft a life of purpose in a world that offers no inherent guidance? Well, Camus offers a surprisingly simple answer. He calls it revolt. Revolt against the absurd, against the indifference of the universe, against the limitations of our own existence. Revolt, he argues, is not about anger or resentment. It's not about cursing the darkness or railing against the night. Revolt is about taking action, about affirming life in the face of meaninglessness. It's about saying yes in the midst of no. It's about affirming life in the face of death, affirming action in the face of futility, affirming joy in the face of sorrow. And that's where Sisyphus comes in. Remember him, the king who pissed off the gods and ended up in hell for eternity. Well, Camus saw Sisyphus not as a pitiable victim, but as a tragic hero. He admired Sisyphus's audacity, his willingness to defy the gods, his refusal to submit to his fate. Camus imagined Sisyphus at the moment when he realized the futility of his task, when he understood that he would spend eternity pushing a boulder up a hill only for it to roll down again and again and again. What was Sisyphus's reaction, Camus asked, if not a kind of revolt? Did Sisyphus break down in despair? Did he curl up and give in to the absurdity of his existence? Or did he stand up and say, yes, yes, I will push this boulder. Yes, I will strive even though my efforts are doomed to fail. Yes, I will live even though life has no inherent meaning? That's why Camus concluded that we must imagine Sisyphus happy. Not because his situation was blissful or comfortable, far from it, but because he was aware, because he understood the absurdity of his fate, and because he chose to revolt, to affirm life in the face of meaninglessness. To use Camus's own words, one must imagine Sisyphus happy because he has staked his all, because he has nothing else to do, because it is his last chance to triumph. Happiness is thus for him the only possible victory. There you have it, a philosophy for those who dare to live in a world that doesn't care about their happiness. A philosophy that invites them to dance with oblivion, to flirt with the abyss, and to embrace the absurdity of existence. Thanks for joining me on this journey through the depths of human thought. If you found this discussion thought-provoking, don't forget to hit that subscribe button so you never miss an episode. Until next time, keep asking questions, keep seeking answers, and above all, keep living your life to the fullest. Take care.